We're live with them. We're not live on YouTube.
We're not live on YouTube.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's.
Let me know when we're live on YouTube. Maybe people will trickle in, which will be nice. Okay, we're live on YouTube, got it. Okay, so it is now 6:43 p.m. and we are starting the meeting. We tried to wait, not very many people in person, as you can see, but we're gonna go around and introduce ourselves. I'm Tracy Mayers, Board of Ed trustee.
Christopher Manguso, Assistant Superintendent, Curriculum Instruction Personnel.
Chris Ballin, trustee, parent of two.
And can I ask everyone on the Zoom to go around? We'll start with the boxes we see here. Up top, I have Kelly Johnson.
How to unmute. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly West Johnson. I have a son that's in 7th grade at Woodlands.
And then we have Erin Jacobson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Jacobson. I was on the committee last year, and I'm also the parent rep for the SEL committee.
Awesome. And then we have Worrell Choley. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
You're all right. I'm Lori. Hi.
Hi. Are you a parent, community member? Yeah, a parent? It's hard to hear you. Okay, we'll move on. If you can hear us, jump in anytime. Then I see Catherine Adore.
Hi, this is Catherine Ador, Director of IB World Language ENL.
Awesome. Michelle Jorge. Are you there, Michelle? And then, okay, we'll come back to you, Deborah McDonald. I hope everyone can hear us. Okay, Shamika Matherin.
Good evening.
Good evening. We're all introducing ourselves. I think we lost some people, but we did get someone in person that walked in, and you're on the spotlight. Say, please say hello and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Giovanna Isaguirre. I'm a parent, 2 children in Greenburgh, one in 2nd grade and the other one 7th grade.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So this is the Education and Wellness Committee first committee meeting of the year. We do not have an established committee chair. So now that we've done our introductions, we're going to do a selection of the committee chair. And trustee Kiana Washington, who's not able to be here this evening, did volunteer to chair the committee. I don't know if anyone here wants to chair the committee, but I want to open it up. And although she could not make this first meeting, she is going to work closely with the liaison, who is Dr. Macaluso, to set future dates for the committee as well as future topics. Does anyone else have any interest in being a chair or a co-chair along with Kiana Washington? Yes, trustee Ballard?
I'll nominate Kiana Washington, and then I have a question after that.
Okay, I'd second that nomination. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So Ms. Kiana Washington is going to be the chair. And what were you going to say after that?
I think we need to still check with legal on if this remains a committee of the whole instead of a board committee, whether or not we need to approve and appoint public members of the committee. Traditionally, when this was just a board committee. But I think there's a lot of meat under there because if this also includes wellness.
Wellness, I
it has to be public.
wellness, we have to.
So for now, I'd just like to say, in case we need to have the whole board approve members of the public as members of this committee, perhaps people should email Kiana Washington,
Yes.
K Washington1 at greenburghcsd.org, and then she could put that to the whole board for a vote. If you're interested in becoming an official member of this committee, if we find that's required, please email K Washington1.
The number one, yeah.
At greenburghcsd.org.
If you send it to K Washington at Greenburgh CSD, you will not get it. The number one needs to be behind that. I'm sorry?
Maybe Zach could put the email in the chat.
Yes, please put the email in the chat. Can they see the chat on the YouTube?
Yeah.
They can.
No, not on YouTube.
Oh, they can.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
That's
on
good.
Zoom.
No worries. Yeah, if you can put that in there, thank you. So now we need a secretary. Does anyone want to keep notes for the meeting? This could be a public member as well. Anybody take good notes? Don't all talk at the same time.
I always take notes, but I'm also always the secretary of my committees that I chair. I'm just gonna say that. So I'll take notes this time.
Okay.
And we'll leave it at that.
Okay, so trustee Ballers are willing to take notes this time, and maybe we'll revisit that. So I did put on here membership for Board of Ed approval because I was thinking what you were saying about the wellness committee, and that we would need to approve, possibly approve. So let's just make a list, just in case Carol tells us we do, and then we can put it on the agenda. I heard Ms. Jacobson say you weren't on the committee last year. Do you want to be on the committee again this year?
Yes.
Approved? Okay. And does anyone else, SEN, okay. Does anyone else want to be Kelly Johnson? Okay. Do you want to be on the committee?
Question,
Mhm.
to be in committee, you like have to make all the meetings, like what about you?
Have
Can
a
make the
comment.
meeting and then if there is a voting thing, you know,
So
what happens?
to be on the committee, to be approved on the committee, that means you have the right to vote, right?
Yeah.
For when, so you can miss a meeting.
Okay.
You're not like, you know, we're not gonna come get you if you don't make the meeting. Do you want to be on?
One week.
Okay, can you spell your name for me so I don't want to mess up? Your last name. Does anyone else who's on the Zoom right now, want me to put their name? Miss Choli, yeah, sorry, Miss Choli, Miss McDonald, Miss Jorge. I see Katie McGee is entering. Now, do you guys want to be added to the committee? And what that means is that your name would be officially approved at a Board of Education meeting. Thank you. And then when the committee makes recommendations to the board, you would vote on that recommendation. And it needs to be a majority
Yes,
vote.
I would like, I'm sorry, not to interrupt. Michelle Jorge would like to be added to the committee.
Okay, great, thank you.
Zach, do you mind hiding the chat so we can see who's possibly not on the screen? Sorry, just in case others run. Thank you.
This says there are 8 people in there. Katie McGee is here. I see your name. Do you want to be added onto the committee? She's not, huh?
It says that she's joining still.
Oh, she's
she-
still.
Okay. Maybe she hasn't connected. to the
Hi,
line.
no, I'm in. I don't necessarily need to be on the committee. I'm not sure I can come to all the meetings, but
Okay, all right, thank
I'm
you.
here tonight.
All righty, so let's move on. Right now I have Giovanna Izquierdo, Erin Jacobson, Kelly Johnson, Michelle Jorge. Okay, great. Next, we're going to do planning for upcoming meetings.
I have a quick question. Hold on. Tracy, does this mean we don't send an email to Kiana, or do we still need to send an email to Kiana?
So these people that I wrote down, including you, do not have to worry about an email to
Okay.
Kiana. We'll give her this list, but anyone new wanting to join, or, you know, anyone who's here who decides later, I want to join the committee, please send an email to kwashington1@greenburghcsd.org. Thank you for that clarification. So let's plan for upcoming meetings. The dates, Dr. Macaluso and the board kind of looked at some dates, and these dates came up for future meetings. So we have today, Thursday. Can they see the agenda somewhere? No? Okay. All right, so we have an agenda that we're working off of. You guys can't see. I'm sorry about that. Dates and topics, Thursday.
I can show it if I was sent it.
Let me see if I can send it.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I can show it if I was sent it.
Okay, can you send that to him? Thank you. Thursday, 9/22, Monday, 11/21, November 21st, Thursday, March 9th, 2023, and Monday, May 22nd, 2023. Those are the dates. There's an agenda over there. If you want to get this, yeah. So he's gonna send the agenda to the computer.
Am I sending it to your email?
Yeah, Z Baker at Greenburgh.
Right, open. Yep.
Thank you. And then he's gonna post it for the people to
Yeah,
see.
I'll screen share.
We do need to have at least one more date because the wellness part of the committee needs to have 4 meetings a year. So the other proposed dates by a Board of Ed member for January 5th or February 9th. Yes, trustee Bell?
Has trustee Washington seen these dates yet?
Right, so she did see
There's a
those
lot of
dates.
Thursdays, and I know that might be an issue.
Right, so the reason why trustee trustee Washington can't be here is she's actually a teacher at a teacher's college. So she's teaching on Thursday nights. She did inform me that that is her fall schedule, which may change in the spring, which is why the Thursday 3/9 was okay with her. But she can work with Dr. Macaluso to set another date so that we have 4 dates that they can do wellness. Time and location of meetings. Are we leaving these meetings to 6:30? Is everyone okay with that? Anyone have any feedback on that? People are nodding. That's good. You guys are okay with that? Not too early or late? Okay. Proposed topics.
Sorry, Tracy. The time is fine. I just won't be able to make any Monday meetings
You can't be at all or in person?
at all on Mondays. I work Monday nights, so I won't be available for any Monday meetings.
Any Monday. Okay, so the next one is a Monday, November 21st.
Correct.
And then you also have the May 22nd meeting. Okay, so again, trustee Washington and Dr. Macaluso will work together. You know, they may come up with a whole nother date, but right now these are the dates. Proposed topics. So tonight we're going to talk testing. Dr. Macaluso has these awesome handouts here, which I don't know if you guys can see, but they're examination schedules that the kids are going to have. You know, we have the New York State assessments, which are 3 through 8, so 3rd grade through 8th grade, and then the high school or middle school takes with math, and high school does do the regions. So all of these forms are great to have as parents. We also have the IB schedule for, I guess, parents of older kids who may be taking an IB course or in the diploma program. So hopefully, I don't know if these can get emailed, Dr. Macaluso, or you think so? You think, okay, all right. So maybe at least to the committee members or the people here today, they can get this email. Or you can put it on the website. You can also do that, whatever you like. But they're actually great for me as a parent to see. I think I like that. So tonight we're going to talk testing. Other topics include, and these are just suggestions, SEL committee update, special education pathways, and OPWDD supports, which are the Office of Persons with Developmental Disability Supports, MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems of support. Math curriculum, 8th grade algebra for all, financial literacy, science, social studies curriculum, world languages and IB, BOCES offering and guidance. So those are just some topics. I don't know if anyone from the committee wants to suggest any other topics that they would like to see or hear or discuss in this committee. Yes, Ms. Jacobson.
There's definitely been a massive push for dealing with Aramark in a different way, both in terms of the nutritional content of their food, what they offer, and an extension of that is how long the kids have to eat and to do recess. So
okay, so maybe under wellness too. So I put food services / Aramark / lunch experience, because that kind of could cover also recess. Sometimes there's questions about that as well.
Yep. And I think just communication between the school and the public or parents in general, that's been a major concern recently.
Okay, but anything, communications for sure, anything around specifically education, like academic education and wellness?
Those were my big ones, and the SEL committee's already on there, so.
SEL, it's our SEL committee update, great. Oh yeah, you have, oh good, you have it, they can see it. Somebody put something in the chat, I think.
Well, I'm gonna ask though that people not put things in the chat if possible, because we don't have it up and we want to make this interactive. Ideally, everyone's here. We stopped doing it in Zoom, but we can't see you there. But because also, if you're contributing in the chat, I don't want to watch it later on YouTube. You can't really participate. So yeah, maybe you see them. Yeah, or raise your hand, or whatever. Yeah.
You okay? Okay. So Dr. Iverson, you gotta introduce yourself. They can hear you.
Okay, so hi, Dr. Iverson, Superintendent of Schools. Excuse my tardiness.
Okay, so we were talking about topics, Dr. Iverson, that people may want to discuss in the Education and Wellness Committee. We just heard from Ms. Jacobson. Does anyone else have a topic they'd like to discuss? Or something else you'd like this committee to cover? No, we covered got everything? Okay, well, listen, email later too, if you think of something that we don't want to discuss, or if you're shy. Okay, next, we'll move right along. Committee charges. So, oh, you got them there, okay. So our committee charges, we can actually bring it up on, can you bring up the website? Under the board website, so everyone can see them?
Well, how would I go there?
Greenburgh CSD, yeah,
GCFD.
and then about us. Board of Education, to the right, yeah. And then committees, to the right, top right. Yep, and then, there you go, Education and Wellness, click on that, right there, yep, thank you. So if you scroll down a little
No,
bit,
to the left,
Oh.
committee charges.
there you go. Thank you, Chris. It goes right into board docs. Right, it goes to a November 17th meeting, so we probably need to update that, November 17th, 2020. So that talks about our mission and our specific goals. So the mission of the Education and Wellness Committee is to ensure that every student in GCSD achieves to their highest potential through a stimulating and properly administrative curriculum. Using a holistic approach, we aim to instill a climate of high expectations for individual accomplishment while giving the emotional support that will allow students to thrive. For this, the committee will work closely with the administration to review instructional programs, testing results, as well as emotional and physical wellness programs. We will use a data-based approach to support successful strategies and implement new strategies to bolster academic achievement and socio-emotional learning of our students. The committee's specific goals are regularly evaluate curricular programs such as academics, arts, and support, and extracurricular programs like student activities and athletics, review standardized testing scores to gauge the district's progress, ensure a holistic socio-emotional approach to educating our students, hold public meetings on a monthly basis. Now that needs to be looked at, because whether or not we're doing a monthly basis is up for discussion because we are not following that. Yes.
If you, sorry, but I'm looking at the ones that we approved, that's from 2020, in November 2nd, 2021, that was updated, and it just said, the updated version of the committee chart just says hold public meetings. It doesn't specify how many. That will include.
Now you must have been on the committee last year. I wasn't on the committee.
No.
You just remember.
So the updated
So
version,
where is the
so that
updated-
was on it under November 2nd, 2021. So it's, everything else is the same because I'm checking as you're reading.
Where,
But
so
if you
you
move
found
the-
another one?
The ones we approved for last year.
Okay, can you pull that up then? You said it's November what?
So if you go.
I'm sorry,
to-
guys.
Sorry, Zach, if you go to
This is my
meetings,
research.
to the meetings tab on the right, yep, go to meetings, go to the year 20, yep,
Wonderful.
November 2nd, right there, November 2nd. And then it's,
So we need to ask,
I don't know what
I
I
guess
guess.
it's Ivy now
But view
to,
the agenda,
we need to ask Ivy to
well, once we update
link
this
it,
year.
yeah, to link. the
Go down
most recent one.
to, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, down to board action, keep going. Right there, stop. There it is. And number two.
Number two.
Number two.
There you go. That's awesome. So let me read from the screen. Oh, Ashley, can you
I will.
pull up board docs? Okay, can you scroll down a little bit and then I can read just what's on
Oh,
screen?
that's all.
That's it? That's all that's
That's
there.
all of it.
So it doesn't have, okay. Arts, academic, release standard tests, we'll hold public meetings that will include presentations by the committee, departmental and program directors, guidance staff or administrators, serve as a forum for proposals from district stakeholders, hear concerns about education and wellness programs, and guide residents to appropriate district resources that are best equipped to address these concerns. The Educational Wellness Committee will inform the entire board of the progress that the district is making, as well as proposed policy, procedure, and programmatic changes or changes for the board's review and approval. Awesome. So do you guys like that? Do we want to update anything or change anything? Anyone? Don't all speak at once. Yes.
If no one has a proposed change, I move that we approve the charges as submitted.
I second it.
Awesome. Thank you. So we will check that off our list.
Aye.
Oh, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried. Okay, so now let's move forward to that assessment calendar. Dr. Macluso, it is all up to you. Which one are we looking at? This one, district assessment calendar?
So what I had actually intended, well, first of all, good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. The slide that will soon be shown. So if you were able to join us in live time, you would have seen that I have several of these calendars are actually printed here in person. I will try my very best to master putting these things up on a website so that you can have them. So the calendars that I provided are as follows. So the first snapshot on the left is our district assessment calendar. And what that provides is a number of dates for assessments that we use here internally that are specific for Greenburgh that are particularly used to evaluate our curricular programs. What I also provided, it's not a snapshot here on the screen, I provided the January and June Regent schedules, the January ones being a little bit less common. Those are for students who complete a course mid-year, and that's usually a little bit of a smaller population, as well as the June 2023 Regents exam scores, Regents exam calendar. And then the last piece that I thought might be helpful for parents, or that we thought might be helpful for parents rather, is the May 2023 IB Diploma program assessment calendars. So those are available here in person, but they are also, as I mentioned, I will try to place those on the district website so that you're able to see those. Things that are not reflected or that we did not print out in paper that are on the agenda. So iReady is reflected in the district assessment calendar. So you'll see the snapshot that I have there. It's the third one under Haggerty. ALP assessments, that was something that we did this year sometime in around May. And so that date has not been finalized yet, but you would expect that you would see ALP testing, which is a COGAT assessment, would be the only new piece for students. And that would happen sometime in around May. The New York State assessment calendar was also included at the bottom of our district assessment calendar. And that's the snapshot that I have left. Regents exams, exam dates I provided. No. I apologize. I was looking over the agenda as I was working on this. I did not provide the AP calendar, but I will go ahead and provide that for everyone in the group, as well as place it on the website for anybody to be able to see. And then, as I mentioned, the IB piece is down at the right. So that kind of represents a snapshot of all the different assessments that we have here in the district. I'll pause for a second to invite anybody to ask any questions.
I saw somebody, oh, yeah. Erin Jacobson. You're muted.
You're muted.
We don't hear you.
Sorry, I put the hand down and didn't unmute. If we could click to the slide where that's written, if there is a slide of that, and then now that we are assuming COVID has kind of died down, is ALP testing happening every year, or how does that work?
So for new students, they would be tested in the fall, in the spring. And so since we've already tested a majority of our students this year, we would not have the retesting of all students who are currently in it, but we would do it for new students. We set the baseline this year because we had not had the assessment administered previously due to COVID. And so this was kind of last May was our opportunity to screen all of our students. And so we would do that for new students coming in. And so thank you for that question. I do want to kind of elaborate a little bit on that. I know that there are some parents who are new to the district who have asked about ALP testing happening for their children. And so the reason why we wait for that to happen once the child has been with us for a full year is because ALP, screening for ALP is comprised of 3 different assessments: the COGAT, iReady end of year assessment, and then it's also based on teacher recommendation. And so while I'm saying iReady end of year assessment, we also do use the middle of the year and the beginning of year to see how that child has grown. And so one of the challenges that would happen for a child who is not with us for a full year is that we would not have the 3 test points for iReady, which is helpful for us because it allows us to see the progression of the child and how they have grown, which is an important piece in testing for that program. And so that would be the way that we would handle our testing moving forward.
Okay, so then they wouldn't be retested ever if they're already in the program?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Not currently. However, there's always, and that's the nature of this committee. So that's the current practice that we put in place, but then, through the process of evaluating that program, if we find that there is a reason to go ahead and retest the child who's already in it, who we've already have a COGAT score for them that's reliable and valid, then we would go ahead and do that. But we would think about how we might do that for those students. But currently, that's not the practice.
Gotcha, thank you.
I was just gonna ask the same question. If a student was already, say, in a gifted and talented program in their previous district, would they have to go through the whole process of testing again?
We would need all of those assessment points, yes, for them to be entered into our program here in Greenburgh, because again, we do have those 3 data points. We have the iReady, which is a continuum for the whole year, BOY, beginning of year, middle of year, MOY, and EOY, end of year. But then also because we have teacher recommendation, which is done by the teacher watching the child's progression throughout the year. And then we have the COGAT, which is a standalone kind of one point in time. So we would need all 3 of those pieces, which will require the student to have been with us for a full academic year.
Giovanna's question.
So, does it have to be like they will be like a high score in all the 3, the COGAT and the iReady? Or that they need to just do good in one of those areas, like for the 3 of them combined?
So we do have a threshold for all, well, for teacher recommendation does not have a threshold, but for the COGAT and for the iReady, we do have a threshold, but we look at it in a triangulation. So if a child scored maybe lower than the threshold on one assessment, but then above, or maybe at or above our threshold for the other assessment and the teacher recommendation is strong, then we utilize that as a way of determining. So it's not kind of like a plain algorithm where we say, here's the cutoff and who met the cutoff. We kind of go through it, we mark off who is on or near that threshold, and then we start having conversations about the child. And that's why it's important, again, to have the child for the full year, because then that gives us a really full snapshot of it. So they might have possibly scored lower than the threshold in one area and met the criteria in the other. And then if through conversation with the teacher and the principal, it's determined that the child has the potential to excel in that program, then we would include them in that program.
How many children apply for this program? Or how many children does the program?
We screen all of our children, so I think that might.
It's coming up.
be- yeah, let me see. I'm trying to see where I have that in the yeah, it's gonna come up in one of the slides, so we can.
Dr. Macalou, so can you tell us what grade? So is it kindergarten? So I'm from the old out way where I think they tested all the kindergartners. Is it still happening that way, or is it all the first graders, or what? What is the age or the grade in which they start the out testing?
So our out program is for grades 2 through 6. And so that's a good clarifying question. Thank you, Trustee Mayor. So at the end of, or toward the end of this academic school year, we would test and screen all first graders, because we have not yet done that for those students, so that we could possibly identify them for next year to be in the out program in second grade.
Okay.
And then moving forward, then the child just continues to matriculate on.
And what if my kid didn't test for out this past year when we did all the testing, but I really, want to try again. She really did well on, her iReady assessments, and just had an educational growth spurt. Can parents who already tested request a test?
Yes, they can. And so that can be done through the principal, is the first layer for that. And then the principal will communicate with the curriculum and instruction office so that we can make sure that those students are screened
Awesome.
or re-screened in that case.
Okay, any other questions? I can only see 3 or 4 people, so I don't know if you have a question, unmute yourself and interrupt us. Okay, next on the agenda is I-Ready end of year assessment results, 21 to 22, beginning of year through end of year, and any questions associated with that.
So I am not progressing, Zach. I don't know, maybe you can do that for me. You just hit the.
The next page, okay.
So this is actually aggregate, and I did it specifically because we had a lot of data that we wanted to share with the group this afternoon. Certainly, if the group is interested in learning a little bit more about how one grade level versus another perform, but what this does is this provides a snapshot of our performance K through 8. And so beginning of the year, I'm not sure if you can see it because of the, on my end, I see everybody who's in virtual land at the bottom, but on the bottom of the screen, I have there for you a little key that just reminds the group BOY is beginning of the year, and then EOY is the end of the year. So Ready is a little bit different from our state assessments in that it has what they call an enhanced proficiency, and so they rate it as a 5-level scale. And so what you have here is you'll see at the beginning of the year, we had 151 of our students across the district K-8 performing at level 5. Then we had 153 students K-8 in reading performing at level 4, which is about 15% of our population. You'll see that the bulk of our population at the beginning of the year in reading were tested at level 3, 405 students, 41%, level 2, 133 students, which was 13%, and then level 1, which was 149 students, or 15%. What you'll see in the next column is definitely, I would say, that of the work of all of our teachers as well as our students, really rising to the expectation of becoming back in school full-time for the first time last year, and so, or what we believe was close to full-time. And so you see that we raised that those achievement levels as follows. 366 of our students tested at the end of the year at level 5, which is 37% of our population. So went up level 4, 201 students, or 20%. So when you translate this I-Ready scale to what the state uses, you would see that level 4 and 5 is considered what the state would say is proficient. One of the slides later on will tell you that state assessment scores were embargoed, and as I was printing everything and getting everything ready for this afternoon at around 4:01 p.m., the state did release a memorandum indicating that the 3 through 8 assessment results are no longer embargoed. So at some point, I can definitely, if the group feels that is useful, I can present the district-wide 3 through 8 assessments. But in general, the I-Ready results closely mirror where our students have achieved in general across the district. So we do have about that 50% of our students at proficiency in reading, which is a nice accomplishment for our district. And then you see moving forward, we did have a lot of gains with ELA where every single group did better than where they were, and you'll see that the bulk of the students are now at the level 3, 4, and 5, which is something that we definitely want to see. Math, we saw a similar trend as ELA, although our proficiencies were not as high. BOY, at the beginning of the year, we had 6% of our students at level 5, 12% at level 4. The bulk of our students, 52%, were at level 3, level 2, 17, and level 1, 13. And then in contrast, you look at the end of the year and you see we've also had nice gains in that as well, although not as large with the number of students, but you do see kind of close comparisons where we had level 4 and 5 for reading end of the year at about 57%. Here we have 48% of our students. So we still have about 10% of our students not showing comparable levels of proficiency in math as in reading, but that's some of the things that we've been putting efforts into place this year with the district, with providing a new math coach and some new math instructional materials. So I see a couple of hands popping up, and I'll take that as an opportunity to pause and let folks ask, or have folks ask some questions.
So in addition to the additional support you just mentioned, when we're looking at the level 1 and level 2 students, is that how we first offered vacation to summer school, and are those the students that we're targeting with academic interventions, or are we also including some of the level threes? Can you just talk about what are we doing in the classroom now this fall, and did we do anything for them this summer?
So,
Because we had this data.
yes, so I'm sorry, I can sound perfect, so if you can just progress for me. So, no, that's fine, no, it's a perfect segue into it. So actually, so here are some of the things that we've been putting in place for our support. So we've now switched over to our core math program is Ready Math. And so that is actually a standalone core program, as well as it can be used as a tier 2 intervention. So that's another level of support for students who will be at like that 3-2-1 level. We also now, this year, we are implementing Do the Math, which is a tier 2 and a tier 3 intervention. And you'll see on my slide, I posted there that we are using that in AIS services. So any students who receive additional dosages of math throughout the day because they're at risk, those level 3, 2s, and 1s, they'll be receiving additional instruction with Do the Math, as well as students in our self-contained special education classes. And then in addition, we have ST Math is another resource that we are now introducing in our self-contained special education classes. And that's another tier 3 intervention for those students. And to go to the question of summer programs, yes, we did use that data to target specifically students who we felt were would most benefit from having additional seat time during the summer for instruction in both reading and in math.
Okay, sorry. And so to follow, because you're mentioning 2, 3, and 1 and tier 2, they're different things. Like when I'm talking about level 1, level 2, level 3 for iReady results.
Right.
That's different from tier 2 support, et cetera. Correct? If you can just explain that a little
Yep. So on the agenda where we had talked about pathways and supports, the MTSS system. So MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, it's a structure that school districts use to provide kind of like whole child support. So that might come in the form of positive behavior intervention strategies. It might come in the form of additional, maybe group sessions of students talking through problems or through challenges, but then it also involves different ways of providing access to instruction. So tier 1 instruction always happens in the classroom with the homeroom teacher, and it is for all students. Tier 2 instruction is a little bit more specific, and it's different ways of accessing the content. And that would typically be for a student who is like at the level 3 and at the level 2. Tier 1 students who are the most at risk, they typically get both tier 2 interventions, and then they typically also get tier 3 interventions, which is another scaffolded approach or another way of breaking down the content so that they can access it. So where you saw the slide where we had the level 1 students, they would get tier 2 support, and then they would also get tier 3 support. Tier 2 support generally happens by the classroom teacher as well, but in a smaller group setting. So if a classroom has 18 students in it, tier 2 support would usually happen with the teacher, maybe with 5 students. Tier 3 support typically happens, and in Greenburgh, we are well-resourced with that. Tier 3 supports happen with a specialist. So at Highview, we have a math specialist as well as reading interventionist, and at Jackson, at Bailey, we have 2 math specialists, and we also have, 2 math interventionists and 2 reading teachers there. Might be 3. I had it last year. I had it on one of the slides. I can get back to the group on that, but we do have tier 3 supports at Highview and at Bailey, and also at Woodlands Middle School. We also have tier 3 support at Jackson for reading.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone has a question, jump in, because we can't see everyone. I was gonna say 2 things. As a parent, hearing 50% proficient is strange for me. Maybe, as an educator, that doesn't sound so bad, but it sounds pretty bad for reading proficiency. Is that like normal for districts in this area? Is that normal maybe after COVID? What does that mean for you? I would guys here 50%. That sounds low.
I would certainly say that as students have exited, being remote and being at home for almost 2 years, while that's not definitely the threshold of where we want to be, it's pretty much a good spot where many districts are. Certainly with our neighboring districts, I mean, I haven't had a chance to see what their results are. So I can't really compare us to them as well, but I do see that that's kind of the general trend. And in fact, we maybe even, exceeding other districts that are in our area that have similar demographic, similar population.
And the only other thing I was gonna ask I don't remember what year it was, but we did one year a Saturday, I want to call it Saturday school, but it was called Saturday something, where we targeted, I thought it was level 2s, but maybe level 2 and 3. 3 is not proficient. It was like the people right under proficient to give them additional supports. And I believe it was paid for by a grant or something. Is that something you guys would consider? Because I mean, if 50% sounds like every other kid, so like out of the kid, every other kid is not proficient in reading, and even more in math really concerns me. And so I'm wondering if there was that sort of thing.
So we did build in some additional after-school supports for all of our schools, with the exception of ECP, and not because ECP is not part of our community, but because ECP, because it's a pre-K program, it's not always eligible we're not always allowed to use grant funding for pre-K, but we did build that into our school improvement grant that is close to being approved. And so once that happens, we would start offering that, and we had planned, I believe, to offer it for about, I can't remember the exact number of weeks, but pretty much an hour of ELA support, an hour of math support once a week. And I believe it's close to almost a full school year. I think we were planning to start it mid-October and kind of bring it all the way to early May. But again, that was contingent on the state approving the grant. I think it might even be 40. For some reason in my head, I remember 40 weeks. Could be right.
Okay.
Because the school year is 10, something like that. But yeah.
I see trustee Bell.
Sorry, just because it tags on what you're saying. So you earlier this year provided to the board a breakdown of these scores, and I'm just looking at them, and it looks like we're really strong in some areas, which I think is our basis in foundations right now. We're strong in phonological awareness, phonics, and high frequency words, and we're a little weak on vocabulary and comprehension on informational text, which I know you've spoken to again. So are we now in the literacy coach targeting that? And I know there's some grades that seem to have a little drop. Or is there anything specific we can hear about what they plan to do, or could we possibly get an update on that at a future meeting as far as those target areas?
I can definitely give a more in-depth update on that, but that's something that we're well aware of. And informational text generally becomes something that children in general, that's a trend that you see pretty much in most K-12 settings, is that students tend to be able to comprehend, and they're typically fluent and comprehend more with fiction, so stories and things of this nature. But then when it transitions over to informational text, they tend to drop off in their comprehension. So some of the things that we're doing this year is really emphasizing the use of our writing program, the Writing Revolution, in the content areas, and we're doing that all the way up through 10th grade. And some of the other pieces that we're doing is really making sure that we insert a lot more nonfiction text into our Fontes and Pinnell reading program, so that students are comprehending and reading more about that. But I can give you more of an update.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I was just listening and just trying to process. I know my child is now into the middle school program, but just listening, what are they doing in, I guess you would say, your Highview and your Bailey, as far as small grouping? Because Writing Revolution is great, but as far as the teachers actually delving in, looking at the data, looking at their tiers, how are they being grouped? And not talking from a sense of an ALP or anything like that, but actually honing in, because we all know from data and the research states that small group instruction is so pivotal. So I hear we have the 1 day a week. That's not enough. When the children are at that tier 2 and tier 3 level, they need to be serviced every day, the 5 day a week mark, in the sense of the introduction, it may not be happening at home. So that introduction needs to be happening in school with their classroom teacher and any other supports that may be happening. Is that something that is being looked into or monitored in the sense of how we're moving that data towards the positive trend, especially, coming off the pandemic and, just the children even having access to these articles and such? Because when I look at the writing revolution, that it works well, but when you're trying to hit on those tier 2 and tier 3, I find it a little bit more challenging for them. I just wanted to ask that question. I guess I'm asking that and stating that as well.
So
Thank you.
thank you. To address your first part of your question about small group instruction. So when I was explaining the tier 2 and the tier 3 interventions, that's something that's embedded in our daily practice. So students are always being exposed to tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. And that happens as a result of our professional learning communities that's built into our teacher workday. So every Monday, with the exception of one per month, teachers engaged in professional learning communities, and that's real professional learning communities in our district, where they sit down and they look at data, they're analyzing data, they're thinking about why the trends are showing what they're showing, and then they're thinking about how they'll change their practices. Sometimes those are done alongside the ELA coach that we have in the district, and sometimes those are done on their own organically. Some of the things that we embed as a result of that is we also use News ELA in the district as a way of supporting nonfiction.
Right, but those are tools. I'm talking about the actual targeted skills to get to them to those success levels. Like I'm totally following everything that you're doing to meet and all those things, but the targeted skills. So what's the outcome to look like? So for a parent, for example, my child is limited in their vocabulary. So if you're looking at the I-rated data, so what's happening from the K1 and 2 seems to be positive when you're coming out of that third grade where they're actually reading on their own independently. What's being done? I get the tools you're using, but are we focusing on those skills to get them for that? So whatever they're doing, are they chunking? Like what's happening as far as that? Like, what's that outcome? Just asking.
So
And
sometimes
maybe if you don't want to speak to it, that's okay. I'm just asking, for future reference.
I can. And so some of the things that you'll see happening, for example, to support our learners when they are tackling that nonfiction text is pre-teaching vocabulary. So in small group instruction, having the students learn vocabulary in ways where they are making associations with other words, synonyms, opposites of it, visuals of that, so that when they do go to read the nonfiction text, they have that vocabulary in their top pocket so that they can comprehend better. And then as we scaffold up, it then becomes a little bit more rigorous. So instead of pre-teaching the vocabulary, it's using context clues. So when you read the nonfiction text, what do you see before that sentence? What do you see after the sentence that might help you to define that? So those types of things happen in the
Okay, excellent. That sounds great. Again, well, one thing also just adding to this context, maybe parent workshops so parents know how to do what, so it can mimic whatever that's to look like to a point. Obviously, they don't have the live teacher in front of them. But when we went back to a few years back with the parent workshops and stuff, I don't know what the numbers were, but sometimes parents need to know when I read with my child, what should it look like? I'm just, again, if that's a deficiency, maybe that's something that could be added in. Just a thought.
Yep, and actually the ELA coach and I have had some conversations about that over the summer, about scheduling some parent meetings through the individual schools. So having the read teachers at the individual schools, yes, you're right, provide those workshops where they can show parents, how do you support your child at home with these types of skills in a way that is comfortable for you? Because yes, we're not saying, do that instead or to replace the teacher, but how can you do that at home in a way that's meaningful for you and for your child? So those are already in the works, and thank you for that input and that feedback.
Would that be done at all the elementary levels? Sorry for
yes,
that.
Through the reading teachers.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we're already in the process of scheduling those. I mean, you'll see, I'm sure we will find many different ways to communicate that to the public, through the schools and through our website, but yes, be on the lookout for those because they are coming. Yes, we are planning for them.
Math and
the same thing for math as well. Yes.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Like for me, it was very difficult pronunciation. I don't have, English is not my first language, so I just can't imagine for other parents. So maybe also look into provide for those,
for non-English speaking, non-native English speaking families, definitely pronunciation when you're reading texts with children, right? That's important. That's true. That's a good point. Thank you. Bring that. Good stuff. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know where we were, whether we were on the already assessment information. Where you, I don't know if you were.
No, that's the overview of iReady. So if there's additional, more in-depth things, certainly I hear that, to talk a little bit more about, and I can, we can either build that into this work, or we can build that in through the work happening at the individual schools. But then how do you take a look at those iReady reports that we've already started iReady BOY assessments for this year. So when parents get that report at home, as Trustee Valen was mentioning, you'll see different bars for different for reading, you'll see phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, informational, and nonfiction. So we'll also build that in as well. Parents, how do you read that report and kind of hone in on what are the things that your child could use some more support with at home? And then we can also have like workshops where we have little stations and show you how you can do that at home for both reading and math.
Dr. Regaluso, I'm not sure if this has come up in this district at all, but do we ever, or have we ever had a child and children that don't do well on the computer? iReady is on the computer. It's an assessment through, online. Do we have alternatives to?
We do. And so I didn't, can I just borrow your sheet because I didn't take a copy of my own. So on the district assessment calendar, you'll see that there are lots of different assessments that we do offer in addition that we administer to our students above and beyond. So we have the Dial 4 for pre-K, K. We have Hegarty Phonemic Awareness Baseline for K. We also have the Fontes and Pinnell Benchmark Assessment System for K, 1 through 3, 4 through 6, and then we have Writing Revolution for 1 through 9. So those are all assessments that are administered paper and pencil. Some of them are administered one-to-one with students. And so that gives us another level of deeper dive into the students' performance so that we can guide the work of those interventions.
Okay. Thank you.
Tracy, it's funny you brought that up because that was actually on my mind as well. I'm curious as to maybe we could find this out. I know you said that the state results were embargoed up until this point, and you said they were kind of similar, but I would like to see the correlation between the iReady assessments and the children passing the state exams and how it sort of connects with one another, because the state exam is so different. I mean, you have a writing piece with the state exam. You don't necessarily have that with the iReady. And to your point, I know in Greenburgh, they do the state exams using paper pencil, which is a very different process as far as, for students being able to stop and, strategies basically that they would use to help them do well on a test that they don't necessarily have the ability to use when they're doing an iReady exam. So wondering if there's a way we could somehow look at the results of the iReady. I don't know if there's something already in place, maybe within iReady where, I don't know, I really don't know, but if there's something that could show us the correlation between how the children are doing with the iReady exams versus how they're doing with state exams.
So to answer your question, iReady does have a projected proficiency report. For some reason, it was not available last year. I had asked the vendor for that, but it will be available for this year. So we are doing that comparison paper and pencil. So where we had our students, where we collected writing samples from the students from the Writing Revolution throughout the year, BOY, MOY, EOY. How did that compare to their results on the state assessment when it came to those open-ended pieces? The same thing with iReady comprehension. How did that compare to the comprehension results that we saw on 3 through 8 assessments? And so we will continue to do that paper and pencil, and we hope that actually the vendor has mentioned to us that that will be available for this year as well. So I'm sorry, not as well. That will be available this year so that we can see how that correlates.
Does it break it down by student or just in
Projected
general?
proficiency, yes, it breaks it down by students. So you'll see
And I'm not sure if this is iReady or not, but a parent had asked about pacing charts.
Yes,
You know
so
what that is?
yes, I do know what that is. We do, so there was a question regarding pacing charts for our, that our teachers use for the programs that we purchased. Those are not up on the website. That inquiry did come in sometime around midday. So I will work with the with the ELA and with the math coach to begin posting those things up on our website so that parents can see about where your child should be
Oh,
during the year.
so it's like a estimate of, so that you can follow along.
Right.
To see if your child is with like the normal level of expectation or.
What it does is it paces out the standards, or well, it paces out the content that we will be teaching to have students access the standards. So for example, in fifth, I believe in fourth and fifth grade right now, most of those not most of them, they started the unit with, they started the math program with volume. So a parent would see September, explorations in volume, and then I believe for fifth grade, it moves into expressions after volume. So a parent will be able to see that and say, okay, for the next couple of weeks, I should see my child coming home and doing work with expressions in mathematics. Or for reading, I should see them using context clues to define vocabulary. Or I should see them using annotation skills to make inference or to find their evidence from reading passage or something like that. Or I should see my child doing inferencing. So we'll try to get those things up for the parents as soon as possible so that you'll be able to see those kinds of things. But the only disclaimer that I'll put out there for parents is, pacing guides are pacing guides, and we always monitor and adjust, right? So while we might say that we were going to spend a week of instruction on students exploring volume, if they needed a little bit more time, then maybe they did a week and 2 days or something like that. Or, maybe if the students.
Will that be across from pre-K through 12th? Because I don't see anything for the upper, this has been a question of mine for a long time that I've had. And as we've changed in the administration, I just wanted to know, will it be across the,
You mean you want it from like pre-K through 12, like what took?
Right. Because honestly, I've been asking since my daughter was in the 4th grade, now she's in the 8th grade, and I've yet to see it. So I'm just asking, would that be something, I've always had to ask for it as opposed to it be, just common.
We will get them up there as quickly as possible. It's going to be a little bit of a process for us to get that up there, but as soon as we can, we will get them up. And the goal will be to have that up there for you. Secondary is a little bit different because secondary courses run a little bit more fluid because by the time the students get to 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, they have more of the skills so that things can be a little bit more different and a little bit more
Right,
fluid.
but just to know the direction that they're going in, because, as we're preparing PSATs and such, and, you'll be hiring outside tutors, they kind of want to know where the kids are, if that makes sense. So we're trying to give those, specifically in my household, that's what I want. So, and it should be accessible, what that's to look like what, even in not saying, it could be over, I guess, per semester, what are their goals?
Correct.
Got it.
Because I got an overview yesterday when we went to back to school night, but it was down to the fact that the response was go to Google Classroom, your work is there. That's not really where I am as a parent, especially when we're looking for someone, as the kids have to take Regents and things, kind of where should they be? So we can kind of map that out with someone.
So just so I'm clear, because I'm not, this is a new term for me. So 2 years ago, we did a lot of work to do curriculum mapping, and that is on the website. Is that different? Is pacing chart like curriculum mapping plus time? Or help me understand.
Pacing guides are actually a little bit less than a curriculum. So curriculum will say, we're going to do this, but this is going to be the assessment, whereas a pacing guide is kind of more like a general overview. So 1 week volume, 2 weeks expressions, right? So it might say one
like a
week.
syllabus.
Yes. A pacing guide is like a syllabus.
Okay.
And a curriculum is more in depth. A curriculum might say, we're going to use this resource, we're going to use this video from Khan Academy, we're also going to do this project, and we're going to introduce this topic at this time.
Is the curriculum mapping still up on the website?
Yes.
I believe it is.
Okay.
So if
Can you pull
Ms.
this?
Jorge is specifically asking about the
I can tell you.
upper
Can you
grades,
pull that up?
I don't know what you're saying.
What exactly?
Each of those, like you
I'll
said,
see what it is.
you're right, I was there last night as well. It's a Google Classroom for the teachers. I don't know that that's an easy fix to have something like that posted for
It's on the
the
GCMA website.
So if you go to About Us, Curriculum and Instruction, and then you hit
and you go down the left column.
Curriculum Maps K8.
About us to the left.
About us, curriculum
Curriculum.
instruction.
And then go where?
On the left
Scroll
side,
down,
scroll down. You'll see-
curriculum maps K-8, it's halfway down, keep on going, right
There it
there.
is, K-8.
Curriculum map,
Oh, good, it's still up there, okay.
and you can hit on that.
So you go down a little
down.
bit, go down a little, no, keep going. And then you see English or math, and you can click one for an example.
And so are we only doing this with English and math, or do they not exist for the other areas?
I've not seen, I have to look at Atlas Rubicon, because what we do is we extract that from here and we place it here.
So click on grade 5 for me, please. So, for example, this is, I'm so confused. Okay, so this is the unit, the instructional alignment content skills. So this differs from a pacing, what did she call pacing chart?
Right, so a pacing chart might just say something along the lines of like September, speaking and listening.
Got it, okay.
And then it might just kind of like list some of the things that students will be using, but you see how this one has, you know, all the different things that they'll be doing. A pacing guide wouldn't necessarily say that you're covering working together in the classroom, the structure of a literacy block, exploring all those different things. It would kind of just have a little bit more of a general overview.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it might say something like speaking and listening, choosing a just right book, how do you use a library, so on and so forth. And then it'll kind of like scaffold that way, but it wouldn't be as in depth. But this is also very helpful for a parent as well. It's just a little bit more in depth. And for a parent might want to use this pacing guide as like a quick reference versus this one is a little bit more combing through a lot of different pieces.
Got it. Thank you. Any more, no more questions? Okay, let's.
I have one more question. I have one question.
I hear someone.
It's me, Kelly. I have a quick question about going back to iReady. I remember maybe a year or so ago, we talked about how a lot of the middle school students seem to have a burnout with iReady. And what was happening is it seems like a lot of the children were guessing. Now, my child wasn't in the middle school at that time, but I could see how that could happen. And it was a concern because you saw like a dip of scores as you started getting into like the middle school. Part of it is developmental in age, but also part of it was like a lot of the children kind of bored with the assessment. They were just trying to rush to get through it. And I know it was people. I don't think you were here yet, Dr. Macaluso. I don't remember if you were there at that particular meeting, but I remember it was being discussed whether or not there should be something to look at, something to motivate the middle school, like trying to find ways to keep them somewhat motivated to want to take it and take it seriously. So I'm just wondering, when you're looking at the assessments, do you still see that dip in the middle school? When they hit the middle school, do you think that's still a concern? And if so, how are we going to address that concern?
So I think what you're asking is if the dip in proficiency exists there in the middle school, and yes, our data is showing that the dip in proficiency exists in math, in particular for middle school students. So some of the things that we have going on this year is we believe that with the addition of the Ready classroom instruction that we're using in 7th and 8th grade, that students would better be able to see how because the online component of iReady provides differentiated instruction. So if I, as a child, am a little bit weak in, let's say, how to use a variable, it will assign me some work that I can do with variables so that I can get up to expectations with that. So our math coach is working very, very closely with the middle school team to align the work of Ready instruction with Ready so that the students can understand how that becomes part of their academic success, not just kind of like something that they're sitting in front of a computer doing. We're also closely monitoring. So one of the things that Ready has is, I forget the exact name of it, but it's like a rushing timer. So if a child continues to click through questions at a rapid rate, it'll flag it so that the teacher understands that that's actually probably not going to be a very good assessment result for the student, but then also to have conversations with the student about it. And then we're also doing some additional work with the interventions at the middle school in particular, again, with the addition of our coach this year, so that we can really hone in on the skills that students need to work on in their AIS support, in their academic support as well. And then we're also starting to do some work with the vertical alignment between the high school courses as well, so that the students can be pre-taught as much as possible content in 7th and 8th grade that they will see in the high school so that they can demonstrate more success in that area.
I don't know if Kelly wants to follow up, but I remember talking about this multiple times and, you know, my kids too experienced burnout. And at the time, I think there were glitches with the program where it would make them start all over again if they got into the very end. It was very frustrating. Part of that was the amount of time that we're spending to it. There's that line between doing it enough to have fidelity with the program and the results and doing it too much where the kids hate it, literally hate it. How often are we actually doing the online portion of iReady? Is it just the testing? Are they doing it once a week? What can you tell us how much time you're spending doing the instruction piece online?
So the instruction piece is all live. It's called,
So the
individualized instruction.
technology lab they're no longer in the technology lab doing iReady for.
No. Instruction through the Core Ready program is actually with a book, with a teacher. It's not on a computer. And in fact, that's something that we were very conscious about building in this year because our teachers had surfaced that, you know, students became maybe too proficient at doing things on a computer and through Google Classroom. And so switching back so that we have go back to, I guess, what we call conventional instruction, where the teacher is actually having students write in the book, touch it, you know, show their work and things of this nature. So the individualized instruction is not happening every single day. I mean, certainly students could do more individualized instruction at home if they chose to do so, but that's not the students sitting in a lab doing iReady every day, nor are they sitting in their math classroom doing iReady. They're being provided with instruction.
Right.
And the program actually has lots of scaffolds in place to help students become more proficient at describing their math, their mathematical thinking. And that's actually some work that we're doing in collaboration with Targeted Leadership under Dr. Iverson's guidance, with having our PLCs focus on math instruction and being better problem solvers and being able to articulate how they're solving problems. So some of the things that we're building in all math classrooms, pre-K through 12 this year in mathematics, is having students do multiple reads of a problem and then communicate verbally how they might tackle that problem, carrying out a plan, and then looking back to see if their solution made sense in light of the problem. So lots of different pieces that we're building in to support the math instruction in all grades.
Okay, so, yes.
About this test. I know that some children can opt out of the test. Is that?
Take iReady. State test. Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Oh,
That's what you're doing. I would opt out.
Yes.
I don't want you to opt out. Some people do opt out.
no, but I just want
It's
what
an option.
happens. If they vote them, or why do they?
So we can, if you're okay, we'll pause and I'll address that. Yes, I'll get.
That's a great question.
So
Al?
I did want to provide the community with an overview of where we are this year with respect to our ALP cohort. So ALP grades 2 through 6, we have 97 students enrolled total in ALP at Highview and at Bailey. So we're at we're a 60-40 split male-female. So 59% of our students in ALP are male, 41% are female. Zach, next slide. Oh, now it's working.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's the thing just woke up. That's good. And so I think the chart is a little bit cut off over there. This is enrollment by race. So you'll see Hispanic is not there because that's actually changes that we had to the federal guidelines for how we identify students. So we can no longer use Hispanic as a race, it's an ethnicity.
Yeah.
But when we use when we use the races that are part of our management system and how we identify students, this is kind of this is the breakdown across the district.
Can you have just a.
Black Africa, Black.
So tell me what the green is, please.
So, Asian.
Green is Asian? Okay, so 21%, can you just tell me the number? 21% Asian. No?
Hold on. Black African American is 22%, white is 56%.
American Indian.
It should be the other way around. American Indian, Alaskan Native, it looks like the key is wrong. Well, no, it's right. It's just the greens are too close
Okay.
on the chart.
Okay.
So the 1% is American Indian,
Okay.
so do I fail to acknowledge it at
Let's
this
see.
point. But the very thin sliver that's like a darker green
Got
is American Indian / Alaska Native,
Got it.
and then 21% is Asian.
21%.
21% is the lighter green,
Asian, and then 56%?
is white. 22% is Black African.
And Hispanic are under what?
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I was just gonna ask also. Where does Hispanic fall under? Is it that?
Hispanic, it depends because Hispanic is an ethnicity. So a Hispanic parent might identify as white, or they might identify their child as white, or they might identify their child as something totally different. They might identify as Black as well, or any of the other.
So this is based off of how a parent identifies their child in the district,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay,
This is all done through home questioning. So once a child enrolls in our district, a parent selects a race.
Yeah.
And they can choose between Black, African American, Asian, Alaskan. What's up here? American Indian, Alaskan Native, sorry, that's all the different
yeah,
abbreviations that I have there. And
Got it.
I can't remember what the fourth one is, but then if you then have an option of selecting ethnicity.
and then you can say
And that's when you
Hispanic,
can say
not
Hispanic, not Hispanic.
Yes, okay.
Right,
I hate
or you can
those
choose not to answer as well,
I
yes,
hate those
that is
options.
actually
Okay.
correct as well.
Yeah.
So we may have a child,
So when we see the white, that also includes embodies Latinos.
It could, yeah.
it could, but
may be
then it could also. A parent may have also selected Black as race
Right.
and then also said Hispanic as well, so there could be Latinos included in the Black African American category as well.
I get it, okay.
Or even Asian family that
Yeah.
decided to check white.
Yes.
Does that happen?
Yes, we do have that, yes, because it's all self-selection by the parent.
Mhm. Yeah, okay, that's good to know.
I think
You wrote it.
I totally sent the button through the machine, so now it's like, you have to progress.
Do you have a chart with Hispanic, not Hispanic?
I don't.
No,
I can provide,
Okay.
no, I don't, but I can, that's something that's, because when I extracted that from portal, it didn't have
That one is gonna appear on the website because it's gonna be confusing,
Yeah,
which part.
the
the
chart.
chart.
This chart. Yeah,
Yeah.
like if, you know, if someone in the community go see like, how is the, what do you call, the ethnicity of the children
Right.
enrolled in the school. If it doesn't appear Hispanic or Latino, it's gonna be confused if they are under white or under brown
Right,
or black, it's gonna be a
There is
little
no brown.
confused.
there's no brown.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I can put a little piece underneath there that says
Yeah.
Latino is an ethnicity that is captured in one of the races here.
I think it should.
Yeah, I can.
So I'm actually, aside from race or ethnicity, I'm looking at the male-female split. Do we have any? I don't know if anyone's concerned about that, or is there any data as to why that's happening? Is it that the males are testing more into out? Maybe are females leaving the district more, or I don't know if at this age between 2 to 6, you see a greater performance result in males?
I think we also have to, I mean, to
Look at
really
the-
judge that number, you need to know exactly the district. as a whole. We might have more males enrolled in these
Okay,
grades.
right
We
now.
have that in front of us, so really to make a
Answer.
decision on that or judgment call on that.
Well, I'm just
we have to
curious.
see it in front of us.
Yeah, I'm just curious. It's just something I'm noticing. If it's 60-40, I'm just wondering, why? But
I can put that.
I get it. There's multiple data points to consider for that sort of thing. Okay.
Central. In our last 2019-20 data has.
I have 2021 for that.
Oh, you have 2021,
I-
but it's no data available right now. It's
No, that's
showing-
for the. I'm looking. No, I have 2021 pulled up. Here.
Did you find it? Oh, there you go. So, yes, I thought we were about a 50-50 split,
Okay.
because I kind of had,
For all grades,
yeah.
not just.
2 through
Right,
6.
so, yeah, and I kind of had that because I remember when I was joining the district, I was we're like even almost in the split 50-50.
Okay.
So it's a question.
All right.
Something to think about.
So next is teacher staff professional development.
For
Out.
Oh,
Out.
for Howard. Yeah, so for our teacher professional development, so what we do is we have our teachers work collaboratively on developing units of study that are a little bit more project-based and a little bit more hands-on. Not that that's not in existence for our students in non-ALP classrooms, but the instruction is a little bit more guided by inquiry that comes up in the classroom. And that's actually a focus area for Office of Curriculum and Instruction this year, is to really take a look at professional development for our teachers of gifted and talented students. I think that that's something that, having almost completed my first full year here.
Advanced learners.
Advanced learners.
And they're all gifted. And they're all talented.
They're
They're all gifted and talented, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how, we can use some of the pieces that are part of, certification requirements for gifted and talented teachers, so that we can bring that to our teachers to go ahead and enhance their work with our ALP program. ALP teachers are included in professional learning communities, the same as our other teachers, and working collaboratively to think about how they will stretch the thinking, connect the thinking, use our IB learner profiles. So that's kind of the general overview of professional development for our ALP teachers, but something that we're going to continue to work on for this year as well.
Okay, can I just say one thing? Having kids in the middle high school and having conversations with them, and having one child that went to the ALP program, I do hear from the teachers that they notice some strength coming up, definitely in writing, I guess, which came from us instituting maybe the writing revolution and some techniques and skills from that. But specifically at Bailey, where my child had ALP, the instruction, especially in ELA, was very strong. And I don't know that much about techniques. I know the mom earlier asked about what is happening in that classroom that the teachers are doing, but the techniques that were used by the teaching staff to foster what I would call like exploratory learning, like questions and discussions at a young age. The teachers up here at Woodlands Middle High School have commented that the students know how to orally express themselves, they know how to defend their point of view in writing. And I see with my second child who had ALP, not necessarily my first, that the teachers were commenting just on the cohort as a whole seems to be stronger in that way. And it just makes me wonder, having a third kid not in ALP, what happens to the kids who do not have those instructional techniques? So like when we talk about professional development for the ALP teachers, whatever's happening, at least with that cohort of teachers that were teaching, at least at Bailey, that at that time, they were doing a good job, whether they were having professional development or not. So I'm glad there'll be more professional development, but I'm wondering, how do those techniques that were successful, if you talk to the middle and high school, or maybe middle school, because they receive these kids, how do those techniques kind of get used by the rest of the staff population? Like how do I share with you my techniques that are really working and pushing these advanced learners, so that children who may not be as advanced of a learner, but are still gifted and talented, can also learn to explore themselves? Because when you get up to the middle high school, you can take honors classes even if you're not an ALP student. You can try an IB class, right? Even if you're not an honors student. So how do these kids develop these skills as well?
So that's actually one of our focus areas for professional development this year, is honing in on the Danielson framework. 3B, I believe, is the indicator, questioning and discussion techniques. So that's something that we'll be doing at the leadership level to calibrate amongst ourselves. When we walk into a classroom, what are some of the questioning and discussion techniques that we see that we want replicated? And we also will be doing some work with the faculty, visiting each other and looking at that specific area so that they can learn from each other some of the techniques that they see in the classroom, with the anticipated goal of doing exactly what you said, Trustee Melissa. How do we broadcast those practices out across the district? And so that's something that we're hoping and we're expecting to see changes in this year. Not because we're not doing it at all, we're not doing it well, but we want to strengthen and we want to enhance that. So that's work that we'll be doing in that area that could address exactly what you're saying, because we know that in the language acquisition paradigms, listen, speak, read, and write. So students can speak about the content, they can read about it, and then writing about it is a way of them communicating their thoughts in a little bit more an advanced way, which brings in our writing revolution program that takes those oral skills and then cements it with the written part as well.
And program assessment for how do you guys assess that program?
It's always through ongoing assessment of practices, teacher practices in the classroom. So how do we see that the students are performing? How do we see that the students are being able to engage in activities that are guided by the inquiries that happen in the classroom? So this piece is mostly done right now through observing what's going on in the classroom. And so we're looking at additional ways to go ahead and assess that program for effectiveness.
Were the iReady and New York State assessment results of the OUT program students level 5 and 4?
I have not done that level of
Okay.
analysis yet, but that's something that I can walk off that we can.
I have a question. Do they often do staff development where the teachers are able to go into other classrooms? Because you made a pretty interesting point, Trustee Mears, when you're talking about, because it's the same thing. I heard the same thing when I went to back to school night as well, about how strong the students were coming in as a cohort, as far as critical thinking skills, just the way they develop an answer and their writing, things like that. And my son also was in the OUT program. And I just wonder, like, some of the activities I can honestly say as a teacher myself, I've used in my classroom, and it's not a advanced learning type of situation. And I find that it's equally helpful for those students. So I'm wondering, how often do you ever have the opportunity for teachers to see what other teachers are doing in their classroom? Because, you know, there's a lot of wonderful things in all these classrooms, and I would think they can learn from each other.
So we do have that as part of one of our goals for this year, is to have teachers visit at least one of their colleagues once per year. I mean, we expect that we will exceed that, because we do have pockets of where that's already happening. And that's actually something that we've been able to have a conversation collaboratively with Greenburgh Federation of Teachers Federation rather, and really fostering that culture whereby teachers can visit each other's classrooms and have those organic conversations with themselves in a non-evaluative way, so that they can share those best practices. So in short, it's happening, and we are going to capitalize on that and now have it be more systemic this year.
Thank you.
And then also include it and weave it into part of our professional learning communities, so that this way it is something that is heard school-wide.
Trustee Round?
Well, so that's what I was actually just searching for, and I just found it to see if the PLCs were divided up by subject, or, so ALP is not segregated out.
No.
It's one
No.
group by the subject. Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? You might have to unmute yourself because we can't see everybody. Okay, next we have New York State assessment. We have on the agenda embargoed scores that are not the case anymore.
So this slide, I had put this together, as I mentioned, this was something that we received from State Ed that was just reminding us at the time that we could not share in public settings our data. We now can, and so this is kind of now a moot point. But what I will highlight is that we have confirmed that our RIC, which is the Regional Information Center where we partner with, has started sending out parent reports. So that was something that has happened, and you see that that was something that was allowed even in the embargo. So the third bullet down did say that data can be shared with parents and used internally for instructional planning, which is what we were doing here in the district. That's how we knew who we should provide, which students should receive additional support. And so parents, please be on the lookout for that. They should be arriving in your mail. Either you should have received it already, or they should be you should be receiving them shortly. And so what I can then do is have a little bit more information for the committee at our next meeting, if that's something that we believe is important with the 3 to 8 assessments.
Okay, and opting out, it's next.
Oh, sorry, opting out. So opting out is always, just go back. Opting out is not, well, you could just leave the slide up with the 3 to 8, but it's something good. So opting out continues to be something that parents can do. I mean, parent has the right to opt their child out of 3 through 8 assessments. For Regents assessments, we cannot do that because your child needs to complete a certain number of Regents exams in order to receive a diploma. So while we will say that 3 through 8 assessments, parents, you always have the right. Please know that as a district, we would strongly encourage you to not opt out your child. Again, you always have the choice, that's your right as a parent, because we do use those assessment results to continue to think about how we can best meet the needs of your children, and it is valuable information for us. We're no longer at the point where the state has punitive measures in place for that. A while back, there were some things that the state would do if this district did not meet a certain amount of the participation rate. So at a certain point, the state was monitoring participation rate. That's no longer the case. But again, if you choose to opt your child out, you have that right. And we strongly encourage you to not utilize that option.
Okay, thank you.
Regent scores, next slide. I was able to provide a quick table at the last minute when I saw that we were able to share some results. So this is just a kind of quick snapshot overview for the community where we are. So for algebra, our average scale score was at 59.
What?
Going all the way down.
What is the passing score?
I was just gonna ask the same question.
So average is 59 and passing is 65.
Correct.
Algebra 1. So is this the algebra 1 that we're doing for all 8th graders? Okay.
So there's some programmatic questions about that.
Right.
So and this is kind of always a challenge in education when so here in Greenburgh, we do provide 8th graders with the opportunity to complete algebra as 8th graders. And you'll see the results there show exactly
but is
a question that we have, right? Should we continue to do those kinds of things because of what our average scale score is?
So when you say scale score, is this weighted?
Yes, there's a raw score and then
Thank you.
and then the state gives us a conversion chart and then you convert the
Okay.
raw score into a scale score.
Okay,
And the scale score is one that goes on a 0 to 100.
right. I'm sorry, Chris.
This is for 21-22.
Yeah.
How is global history on there? Isn't that the one that was canceled?
It was canceled.
So why did we, or was that, does that include January result? Help me
I
understand.
don't know.
what-
That's a good question. The global says 119. I don't think that's January with that many kids.
No,
Yeah, that's a lot of kids.
just give me a second. Let me see where I pull that from.
Can you scroll it down, please? I don't know anything.
What?
Is there any way to see the rest of it?
It's just physics. Or are you trying to get the average of everything?
Yeah, the numbers at the bottom.
You can throw the people up at the top of the screen, Zach, if you want.
Yeah,
And then,
Can they see, can the people see it? From
yeah, the people can
the
see
world of
it.
Zoom?
I
Yeah.
see up to physics, isn't that everything, right?
yeah.
Yes.
everything.
That's what I have here.
I could check my calendar, but I am 99.9% sure that got canceled.
That's the one. That's the one because of.
It was gonna be the
Buffalo.
first time since, right, exactly. Okay, so take it, yeah. So that's weird.
I don't-
Or this is in the. Is this,
I have regions, global history, June.
2022. Where would this come from? Is what I'm wondering. Okay, well, we'll get more information.
We're gonna get more
on that.
information on
make sure it's
it.
accurate.
Yes.
Make sure, yeah, make sure.
Allow us
it's
to make sure that that's accurate, but that is what I'm looking at right here.
I'm kind of hoping it's not accurate.
I'm hoping it's not accurate. Cause did that say the ELA minimum score was 5?
Yes.
Okay, let's move
And
on.
that's out of 100,
That's what I'm trying. to
that's like
figure out.
5% out of 100. Am I reading this right?
Correct.
Wow. But the average score for ELA was 72%. So ELA is one of the stronger subjects, and same with physics, surprisingly, which is impressive.
Well, physics, that's because not everyone doesn't take.
And it's
physics.
non-student.
Right, non-student
And
takes physics.
non-student.
So
Oh,
a higher level.
okay,
science course, by the time you're taking that higher level science course, most likely you're going to pass a Regents there.
got it. So the majority of the students took Algebra 1. Now, Algebra 1, if you fail it, I take it you retake it?
Yeah, what happens if do you have to retake Algebra 1 or do you just move on to?
So you will always need one math Regents for diploma. If a child is struggling, or if a child is having difficulty achieving the standard or the expectation, typically they will take Algebra 1 again because it is the one that they might be able to perform better on, because Algebra 2 and Geometry are a little bit more rigorous. We do have to keep in mind that this sample here, this includes all students who are required to take a Regents exam. So this would include all students. And
I also want to point out, no excuses, but we need to remember, as I just had this conversation at back to school last night. For example, the kids who took Algebra 2 missed a good chunk of Algebra 1.
That's right.
Because of COVID. So all of that builds into some things that are delayed, just with that subject specifically, and the kids this year who are taking it are probably going to be part of that problem, or maybe one of the first ones emerging from that. But as far as algebra in general, we currently offer algebra for all in 8th grade.
Yep.
Correct?
yes.
So,
Regardless of your.
and then depending on how they do in the class, when they enter high school, they're either recommended to move into geometry or to do another algebra or a different kind of math. How does that track?
Typically it's geometry. So Zach, if you could pull up the
So no matter how they do in algebra, they're moving to
moved to
geometry
geometry.
automatically, or do they ever go back to
if you could
algebra?
pull up the district website and go to Woodlands High School.
Yeah, that's my question. So if in 8th grade, I struggled in algebra, I didn't pass Regents, my skills are not sufficient. Do I take Algebra 1 again in 9th grade? I'm a little bit.
So if you pass the class, but not pass the Regents, there would be a chance that we could put you in geometry.
Okay.
And then you can try to
Take the
geometry Regents, and that could be your one Regents that's required. for that
Actually, just go to parents and students.
And
then-
you go down to Woodlands Middle High School.
Or go here,
Schools.
and you'll get the curriculum mapping of the
I was gonna actually have them see
course
course
catalog.
catalog.
Right
Oh, there you
there,
go.
right, parents and
Fine.
students. Let's put.
She
Oh,
knows
you have a
the
different
website.
way. I already go to the school. Okay, so scroll down.
So it's
Scroll to math.
I know that the skills are different, right? With algebra versus geometry, you could have a kid that's amazing in geometry, but just can't get algebra for the life of them.
Geometry is very spatial,
It's a
very
different-
visual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess if you only need one math, you could, is that a discussion with the parent?
There you go. Right there. So this is typically the progression that we have children follow. So if in a 9th grader, they completed. As a 9th grader, if they completed algebra, then they would move on to geometry. Once they complete geometry in 10th grade, they would move on to one of those options that are there. And then moving from 11th grade, then they would move on to the next option in 12th grade. So it's really a student by student piece, because you might have a student who in 9th grade did not pass the algebra course or the Regents. And in that case, it would most likely be a recommendation that that child retake algebra, depending on the circumstance. But they also could take geometry because they do need, but then later on they'd have to make up the credit because you need a certain number of credits for math as well.
Right. Is that a process? I'm asking a question I kind of know the answer to already, but at least, it's anecdotal. So maybe, is that a process that should be discussed with parents as well? Like, if my child doesn't pass algebra 1, pass the Regents, or someone, I don't know who, having a conversation with me, we're recommending Jane to geometry. We know she didn't pass algebra, but this is why. so that the parent and the child can be involved in that conversation?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right, any questions from Zoom? No?
And I see that there's no a chance that the child is pulled back. Like it's, I mean, I just question.
At the high school level, it's by credits. So if they don't have a certain number of credits by the end of their freshman year, then moving on, they're technically considered a sophomore, but by credits, they would still be a freshman. If you could scroll up, Zach, where it has the credit chart. So the Woodlands Middle High School course catalog has a lot
It's
of,
near the beginning of the
scroll away, all the way up. These charts right there, you have
The
it,
blue ones.
right? So this gives you the number of required exams. So up at the top, this is where it shows you. So for example, you need at least one math regents for all students. And of course, we want students to have more than one. But those are the required exams. And then if you go down.
Oh, it tells you their minimum.
Right.
4 English, 4 social studies.
And then here are the credits.
Oh,
So,
credits.
so 22 credits over 4 years.
So if you complete those 22 grades, even though you can fail in some other areas, so you still.
But it has to be in those areas. So for example, you cannot, let's say, have 3 credits in English and 5 in social studies and graduate. You must have 4 credits in English.
And a credit is a year?
Yes,
So you have to,
Depending on the subject,
what?
in the core
Mostly.
subjects.
mostly. So like an English course is mostly a credit is for the year because it's like a half and a half. A half for the fall and a half for the
Got
spring,
it.
if you want to think of it that way. Some of the courses are half, like health is always a half credit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Physical education is a half credit each
Right.
semester. So technically, physical education, you see, is 2 credits. You really only have to take physical education technically 4 semesters.
That's why they have it every other day.
Right,
Because then they're, yeah.
right, because it's really only a half a credit.
But my question is only because if the child couldn't make it, so, and if you push to go farther, like, I don't know how it's gonna be so stressful for the child. It was just.
And this says 3 credits in mathematics, so they have to have 3 math, so they really have to have
3 credits,
algebra,
but only 1 Regents.
1 region.
So if you scroll back up, Zach, not so.
So they have to take it 3 years, but take 1 in pass, 1 exam.
Right.
Got it.
So let's just say a child earns a 67 in algebra, but then their score on the Regents is a 45.
Mhm.
They would get the credit for the course, but not the Regents. Then let's say as a sophomore, they take geometry and they earn a 70 in the course and they have a 68 on the Regents. That Regents qualifies them for the minimum one. There's certain different levels of it. If the child wants to have advanced designation and things of this nature, you have to have more exams.
Okay, all righty, let's keep going.
Okay.
Advanced placement.
If we go back to the slide deck, Zach, I think it's the next one. Advanced placement, we had only 3, next.
So advanced placement, most, I guess, adults that were in New York or in the United States know what advanced placement is, but can you maybe explain the difference between Regents, advanced placement?
So Regents is kind of, let me see a quick way of saying, Regents is like a compulsory exam that must be taken at the end of a course in key areas for a child to earn their diploma. Advanced placement is something that a child can take as an option, and it would give them possibly additional, it might give them some credits in college, depending on the college. So AP assessments are maximum of 5 is the score. Some colleges and universities may accept a 3 and give you an elective credit. Some only accept a 5. It really depends on the college or university that your child wants to go to. So for example, for European history, if a child scored a 5, a school might give them credit for some sort of a history class for that, if that's their parameters. But in essence, the lowest score you can earn is a 1, the highest you can score is a 5. And these are our results. We have very few AP courses that we offered last year: European history, Spanish language and culture, and world history. And so there's the count there. And you see for the, the data speaks for itself. So it's like Spanish language and culture is where we are performing I guess, average wise, the highest. Okay, but we do have some students who scored a 5, and we do have students who scored the 1 in this. So this is something that the district is continuing to look at. We, at one point prior to joining the Greenburgh community, we had a little bit more options for advanced placement when we started offering IB courses at the junior and senior level. We started phasing these out. So AP classes are mostly reserved for freshmen. Actually, they are solely reserved for freshmen and sophomores. And we continue to look at this of whether or not this is something that we want to continue to offer for our children, or whether or not we might want to look at different options. But this is still something that we are
Just to note, I think this is the first year we've done AP Euro. There were a few exceptions where individual children. This is the first cohort, I believe, that did AP Euro.
Right.
If I remember correctly, because,
This year and last. But last year,
okay, first or second year.
yeah, but last year was, I mean, in and out with COVID. Right, every other week. Any questions from Zoom? You guys are quiet.
I
Okay.
just want to confirm something because this is all brand new to me. So I apologize if I sound ignorant. All right. But this is in lieu of regents, right? So if they were in, you said they saved this for freshmen and sophomores, right? They could
So-
choose to take European history instead of the, I don't know what regents that would go with, but that's
No,
like.
so let me pause you on that, not to interrupt you, but no, this is not in lieu of. An AP course cannot waive the requirement that the student passes the comparable regents exam.
So for example, so if I take AP European history this year, I still need to take, even though it was canceled, the global
Correct.
regions exam.
Right.
So I'm taking 2 exams that year.
Well, no, because you're taking
No.
global in junior year.
Okay, well, look,
There's only a year or two where there might be a doubling up. So
so help me with this thing. So so if I'm taking world history AP exam, which was 10th grade,
sophomore year.
right? There's no regents that year? I can't remember if my kids are there. Okay. So if you're taking an AP exam, you probably won't have a regents that year, is what you're saying. In that topic.
I'm just going on my family's history. I am not the expert and I don't know all the schedules. There's probably other classes that may have a doubling up. It
Okay,
might be your Spanish AP is the same year as your checkpoint P. I don't know.
Right, but it cannot waive it though.
got it.
Right.
So in that
Got it.
example, it cannot, you still, because advanced placement is an optional piece, but the regents exams are required by New York State. And so going back to the question, I think you said, is this the first year we offered Euro? This is the first year we offered Euro. Yes.
Okay. It makes sense now? Okay, let's move
That
on.
makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to International Baccalaureate. I'm sorry, you guys don't have that agenda, so,
So International Baccalaureate, spreadsheet. So International Baccalaureate is a little bit different. The highest grade is a 7. And again, this is something that's totally variable, similar to AP. Completing and passing a course is dependent on the university. Well, let me say that. Earning credit at a college or university for an IB course is dependent on what the college or university can accept. So it's all a variable piece. It could be the college only accepts a 7. It could be that the college accepts 5, 6, or 7. It depends. But here are the courses that we offer IB. The difference of HL and SL. HL is higher level, SL is standard level. And so you see we have a number of options. I gave the number of candidates, that's IB language, of students who completed that. There's our average grade, and then you see the high and the low for that.
And can we also know, this is the first year they've had to do the actual assessments. Before, because of COVID, they were waived. So we're still in a learning process.
and IB is a 2-year program, so you can start taking the IB classes junior year. So although this is the first year they took the exams, that cohort still had their junior year in the COVID in and out. So that's important too. Okay, does anybody have any questions about these results at all or anything, how this works? Wonderful. Let's keep going. So Dr. Macaluso,
Me.
huh?
It's gonna be early.
There you go.
What?
No, I was thinking of something with the global piece. I was trying to keep all my dates in line and remembering why that was the key, but that's not the same on this.
Sounds good. Okay, teacher staff training in IB.
So the requirements for teaching an IB course is as follows. So at least one diploma program subject teacher per subject, and one theory of knowledge teacher, and one CAS. I forgot the acronym for CAS, but in any event,
creativity, action and service.
there you go. The coordinator has participated in relevant IB workshop. I should have put the key there for everyone. If the subject or course has been reviewed during the period under review and when a new guide has been published. Development opportunities provided to update IB workshop leaders on curriculum changes also meet this requirement. So in short, we meet the requirements here in Greenburgh because we have at least one person in one of those areas. Additional PD that we provide for our IB teachers, we provide them all current course outline materials and unit planners. We provide them access to all IB materials through those various platforms that are part of International Baccalaureate. We have a new teacher who is new to teaching IB this year, who will be working on some individualized curriculum work on October 4th. Anytime an IB teacher needs additional materials to teach the course, they work with the program director to acquire some of those materials. We provide all support materials for our teachers and their monthly meetings with the teachers and with the director from the program, and ongoing check-ins with the IB lead teacher on curriculum planning. So we have a lot of layers of professional development for our IB program here in the district. And we also have IB lead teachers at the various levels to also support that work. We have one at EF Jackson. We have a lead teacher at Highview. In all of our schools, we have this. We do use IB principles in pre-K. However, there's no prescribed IB curriculum or IB coursework that we follow for pre-kindergarten because it's not available through the IB International Baccalaureate. Questions?
There's a 5-year evaluation.
I thought I had the slide here. Is it there?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Oh, I just, sorry, my handouts had it stuck, so I was like, I know I typed it there. So we have, IB authorization is always on a 5-year cycle. So every 5 years, the program goes through a visit. PYP is primary years program, which is at EF Jackson and at Highview. Bailey. Middle years program is here at Woodlands Middle, and the diploma program is at the high school. So there's an online component where we upload some documents to a portal and there's a review of it. Then there's an on-site review. As a result of the on-site review, International Baccalaureate will give us a document called MTAs, matters to be addressed, and that basically things that they want us to improve upon. I gave examples of items that are reviewed by IB. That's not limited, it's just examples. We are now undergoing the first 5-year review for Woodlands Middle High since we've been authorized as a DP program, a diploma program. So we'll be uploading materials to their portal by the 15th, and then we have an on-site visit early spring, March 27th through 29th.
So it's a good thing we have a director of IB because it with the 5-year review. Can we go over some very simplistic stuff?
Yes.
You guys are gonna think this is, I know this stuff, but I really wanna.
Sorry, before we do that, can I just say, NYP program, we had a review during pre-pandemic, and PYP, there was a review during the pandemic. So we're only focusing on a review this year for the DP.
Oh, really? Okay.
And we've already received the MTBA for the MYP and the PYP, and we're working on that. So matters to be addressed, meaning things that the IB would like us to enhance for the MYP and the PYP, we've already received them, and we're actively working on that.
Oh, okay, wonderful. That's good to know. That's helpful.
Sorry, could the board get an outline of that?
Yeah. Make sure.
Is it appropriate for me to ask?
Right, they put that you would take
Oh, I
notes.
wanted-
My notes are.
So what I wanted to bring up and go over because you said it, but I want to re-say this so that parents know. PYP's primary year program, that's from K through like 6th grade. So even though we have different schools, the program, the IB program is all of those schools.
Correct.
The middle year is 7th through 10th.
Correct.
So even though you're in high school, 9th and 10th, you're still in the middle year
Yes.
program. And then diploma program and those IB classes that we keep talking about is only 11th and 12th grade, which is important to know because I think that can get a little confusing sometimes.
Sorry, just to be niggly, I don't know if Ms. Ador is still on here. MYP from IB's point of view, is it 7 through 10 or 6 through 10? I don't
Oh,
remember.
good question.
I'm not sure.
Is Miss, can you,
We can check
Yeah.
that later. She's not
Oh.
here.
Yeah, she's.
I'm here, sorry. The RMYP program is authorized 7 through 10.
7 through 10. Okay, thank you.
But I think that's important. It's a little thing, maybe it's easy for people to get, but I think sometimes people forget too. Okay. All right, keep going. Are there any general questions? Any questions about something we talked about or maybe some other area of education? While we have these folks here, it's 8:30.
I want to clarify, I was wrong and you were right to catch me on that. It was the new one, the U.S. Government History of Americas that was canceled. Global history for Regents. History of the Americas was canceled. That was going to be the new one. Global history did happen.
There you go.
So
So it is
those
correct.
do exist.
So just thank you. And yes, and that's why I was asking you about the historical reference point because of, well, yeah, it was a US item.
So,
Good question. So I mentioned earlier to you, in the spring, I sent a question to the board about the fact that our New York State Department of Education report card or data does not currently include our IB classes. And I know Dr. Mecklin, so you've been communicating with them. So I just want to put in a plug to follow up on where we are, because I do see that the new, not the current year, but last year, I could only see like 2018, 19, and now I just checked like an hour before I came here. 2019, 20 is there. No, excuse me, 2021 is there. And I think you'd already put in a request to have our data amended. So I just want to get an update on that to the board when you have it.
So
Available, because it's not here now.
But there was one year where it wasn't included that we had already passed, I thought I had included it somewhere. The window for correcting it had expired, and I'm no longer able to do that.
Okay, so for the data that's not here, sorry, I'm checking.
For 2021,
2021 is here.
right?
Does not include IB and 21, 22 is not here yet. No data available yet.
I
So
can
the
follow up,
2021
but I don't
data,
think
it's still not here. So if we
Yep.
missed the window, but I just want to make sure we're out of luck. And I honestly don't know if there were other data points missing. That's the one that jumped out to me. So I just want to make sure that the upcoming data is going to be
For
complete.
21,
Because this goes
22.
into like our different, I don't know all the terminology, sorry, educators, but the different scoring on your college and career readiness
Yes,
and
yes, it
things like
does.
that.
Yes, it does.
So it's important to have this answer.
Yes, it does.
okay, so I do have a question. A parent voiced some concern that the goals, I guess, for a school year or for a level, some concern about that. I don't know if it's exit goals you have by the time a child is entering this grade or leaving that grade, what the goal is, and some concerns that the goal at ECP is not to have the child reading. Can you talk some about that?
Quick
That's
question.
yeah, we will be from Ms. Cook. We have not.
Yes, no, yes, correct.
Yes. So we haven't answered that yet, but are you, she said that ECP.
I mean, certainly, so certainly in general, I will say that the goal is always to meet the child where they are and stretch them to their next level. So if something was communicated that was contrary to that, we will certainly work with the school to make sure that that's communicated appropriately. But so, for example, if a child enters pre-kindergarten and already can decode, and in fact, I've had these conversations with the site administrator there, Mr. Washington, then the next step would have them to be reading fluently. And by fluently, we mean simple sentences like the boy can run or the boy is playing. So we always look at that and look at it, and that along the paradigm of reading instruction. And those, the assessments that we do administer at the pre-K level help us to determine where the next growth piece is for that. So that's definitely something that we do for all of our students, and we'll continue to work with the staff there to make sure that that message is communicated in a way that is actually true of what's happening in that program.
Thank you.
Because they certainly are getting those foundational skills that are the precursors to that path to reading, where they start getting some letter sound association and those foundational things they need to know to see if they hear the sounds. That's very important before they know how to put sounds together to words, and then words and sentences, and then they're reading. So the piece of reading that happens at that level is happening. And a lot of kids come in with those skills and probably are a little advanced and are able to read simple sentences, like Dr. Baccalaureate said. But the portion of a curriculum for pre-K student is a lot of that phonemic piece around them, making sure they can associate sounds with letters and seeing if they can hear those kinds of combinations of diphthongs and so forth. They begin some of that in early childhood, and that is the reading piece. Them being able to cite those things is considered part of the reading trajectory to learn to read. So when the parent was, so that's what we will make sure we explain to her. So I think it's appropriate what they're doing in terms of that reading trajectory to learn to read.
So I'm gonna ask a question. That parent earlier gave me some foundation for how I'm gonna ask this question. So what techniques are the teachers using in those classrooms with pre-K? Are they the same techniques as you explained earlier, which were small grouping, I think, pre-teaching vocabulary? Like, are they using those same grouping techniques because you have different, as you said, different students?
Absolutely. So the foundational skills that Dr. Iverson was mentioning of how we get students to move from having phonemic awareness to having phonics. Right? So as Dr. Iverson mentioned, first you have to hear the sound, then you associate the sound with a letter. So all of those things happen in pre-K using our Hegarty and our Relations program.
Okay.
And then our Fontes and Pinnell program is also something that we use for interactive read aloud, so that students start to be able to pick up vocabulary. There's some explicit vocabulary instruction. So those techniques do happen at the pre-K level, of course, within range of the developmental expectations of a student, because then there's also other things that we do in pre-K that are not necessarily teaching as we might imagine it, but that are also useful for pre-K. So having students work together in groups, that's a lot of foundational skills that happen in pre-kindergarten, where they have, when they're at what was formerly called a center, which is now a learning experience, where they go to maybe a art center and they learn to communicate with a peer on what they're drawing, how they can express what they are drawing is an expression of their emotions. So those kinds of things are not necessarily explicit instruction, but they're also very valuable and needed pieces of an early childhood program.
Thank you. The only other
as well as
question.
our numeracy up through, and we stretch that for our students as well. So the standards ask students to be able to count and have one-to-one correspondence to a certain level. Mr. Washington and I have had conversations about stretching that. So if a child can go all the way to 20 with one-to-one correspondence and can count that way and can start counting from 7 up through 20, then that child would be exposed to that kind of work as well.
And then that last question I have is about phasing out of AP classes. It looks like there's only 3 AP offerings now, and I know previously that we had administrative goal to kind of phase that out. And if a student was advanced placement, they would kind of take some IB courses instead. But we also used to have an ECE program, which is early college experience. But what that was, for people that don't know, I guess you could take a college course in high school. There was a fee. There's not college amount fee. And then if you pass that course, you get college credit or something like that. So would we only have, if we did phase out AP, would we only have IB available for the students, or is there going to be a separate, a fourth option or something?
Those are conversations that we continue to have. I mean, certainly College Link, ECE, they're all kind of similar experiences. I think that we had kind of we started talking a little bit about that in this setting last year. And that's something that we'll continue to monitor. And
Dual
if it's-
enrollment sort of programs,
Yes.
connecting with community colleges where students can get some dual credit. You know, by the time they leave high school, they have some credit towards a degree. You know, those are things we're certainly hoping we can expand and
Okay.
expose our students to.
Thank you. We lost,
Partnerships like that with Westchester Community College, some of the SUNY programs and universities. Absolutely, we want to start having our students continue to benefit from that.
okay. We lost some people on, so I think we only have 5 people now.
Tracy,
Yeah.
you were talking about topics. That could be a topic that because we did talk about that last year. We didn't get to finish it. So maybe that could be a topic for a future meeting.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions on Zoom Worlds that we didn't address or you want us to address?
In terms of this specific topic?
No, just with that education, because we're at the end of the agenda. You guys can't see it, but we're all the way at the end. Just any overall questions or comments regarding education and wellness?
Or suggestions for topics for a future meeting?
So I think I just wanted to throw in there, I'm not really sure if this is the correct place. But I had said earlier about like the communication with the schools. We have seen recently just a massive uptick in parent interest and involvement in PTA meetings. And one of the things that keeps coming up is needing information. The district calendar in particular has what feels like a larger number of incorrect dates than usual. And that's providing a lot of confusion. Like some of the stuff online or some of the stuff on the district calendar says things are virtual. They've gone back to in person. Some things are still virtual. And so I think just a better line of communication without parents having to ask specific principals and specific teachers, and just having the district from the top down be more communicative when changes are being made. I don't know if that, I think something that could be really helpful would be a live calendar that gets updated in real time, whatever that might look like.
I think we had that last year. I feel like there was a green line. Do you remember that? There was a calendar and then online, it was like a green line through the increments, the old thing, and it was updated. But it was only online. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I sent a question about it.
You did send a, okay. So maybe, I think we might have had that last year. So maybe we can look at that. It's basically the flip calendar that we all got at home. And then it does get updated when there are, because there are obviously changes. But yeah, okay, thank you. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think just like in particular, I think with people coming back to in person, people being new to the district, ECP in particular has a great need for larger communication, because those are the very beginnings of families' careers in the district. And that seems to be a spot where we as a whole could do a better job of connecting with those families and giving them what they need to feel like their kids are ready. So that was one big part. And then another PTA initiative that keeps coming up is nutrition. And we would like to see if there is a possibility for like an open meeting with Aramark where parents could voice their concerns. I know in the past it's been rough to kind of communicate with them, but something more direct maybe.
Yeah, no, Dr. Iverson, you were talking to us about that.
I don't have an answer today.
Yeah, no answer today, but she is working. I don't think they can see. Dr. Iverson, she's here.
I'm here. We met today with Aramark. And we're looking into some of that as we speak. So stay tuned where we'll involve parents and having some parent voice in some of the selections and concerns as we rebuild that program. Aramark is very interested in keeping this contract, so they are very open now to assuring that our needs are met. So we were on a call with the corporate office today. And so Lisa's working on something to have a forum where parents are going to be able to express their concerns I may not, and possibly through a committee, so it'll be some representation of parents from the schools. Won't be open, but representation from every school, probably PTA members. The school will decide and bring those concerns, and from there begin to have some on-site visits and to other schools with parents to see some of the other programs, because we really pushed hard on why aren't our programs looking like some of the other schools, that we have examples that we've seen that the food looks of better quality, the service is better. Why aren't we getting that same level? So there was a very good conversation, and we're beginning to, Lisa's planning a date for that. And so stay tuned for more of that.
Do you have a rough idea of when we could expect that?
No, I don't. But Lisa will let me know as soon as possible. We're looking at our calendars for that.
Okay, great. And just kind of in conjunction with that is just the length of time the kids have to eat. Like in particular, like tomorrow is pizza day, and my kids always buy pizza, and they have very little time to actually eat said pizza because it's a very popular day. And so the line to get said food is quite long, and 20 minutes is not an adequate amount of time for kids to get their food, sit down and eat it healthily. My oldest just did her 4th grade iReady ELA test today, and one of the articles was about needing longer recess and justifying the cause for longer recess. And she brought it to me and she's like, see, even the iReady tests are saying this is something that we need. So the kids are paying attention and they're aware of it. And I think if there's a way even to extend those periods to 30 minutes, I know Woodlands has a little bit of a different scenario in terms of how students can structure their time, but like kindergartners cannot buy lunch, get through the line, sit down and eat in 20 minutes. Like that's a horrible and unrealistic expectation for them.
Yeah, I would even argue that sitting at the table and talking in their small group of friends is healthy for them to do while they're eating, right? Social interaction, but you can't really talk. I guess they have to just eat and then go outside and talk, but okay.
So I think that's something like I was instructed before when I brought this up that had to happen at the building level with the principals. But when my family has brought this to different principals, it's kind of been pushed aside as if it's not part managed in that available in that area. So I don't know if it needs to come from the top down, but there's quite a lot of research to support a longer lunchtime too. I can provide that resource if that's helpful. But it's just something that seems to be an ongoing problem. I hear about kids throwing up because they like eat too fast, and then they're trying to shovel it all down, and then they go run around to try to burn off energy. So it's an ongoing problem that I think has a relatively easy remedy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So Dr. Iverson heard you. Thank you. I thought I saw Catherine and Dora's hand, but it's not there now, so I'm not sure if you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to quickly say that when I was in the building, the kindergarten and the 1st graders don't necessarily quote unquote walk through the line to get their food. They come into the cafeteria and they're served the food from the cafeteria aides.
But that's changed now because they have to pay for it. Sorry, Ms. Adore, to interrupt.
Because they have to pay for it. Yeah. But that's when I was in the building, and so it's probably different.
And we did have, thank you, Ms. Adore. So we do have something to chat. And can the 10:18 lunch be changed? What's 10:18?
The high school lunch.
Oh, the high school lunch.
They had that in Bailey too, I feel like an early lunch like that. Because I felt like last year my son had a really early lunch and a lot of them didn't eat. And by the end of the day, they were starved.
Most cafeterias start at the earliest, about 11, I would think. If you have 3 cycles, 3 waves to get through, but these are things we'll look at. I don't know how many changes can be made this year. These are conversations as principals start building their schedules next year, but we'll look into it.
Yeah, it's because of the 3 grades.
It's the 3 grades. Yeah, but so
and they have to have 3 waves, so they have to start one as early as I would think 11 at the maybe 10. 10 does sound early.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it depends on the number of lunch waves you have. And if they're 20 or even 30, everyone has to eat, so you usually have to be done by 1. So that they can clean, so it's some, some reasons behind it, but we'll look into it.
And a lot of those students at those 2 schools arrive at school at 7:30. They're on the bus 7 o'clock, 7:15. They've not eaten for at least 3 hours. Not to say that's not a problem, but I just want to point out that we will be covering, I don't mean to speak for our committee chairperson, Ms. Washington, but we will be covering wellness in at least 4 of the meetings.
Yes, we have
As
to,
your
yeah.
policy 5661, so I'm sure we'll be readdressing some of this, but if you have Erin, at least if you have other concerns about communication, it's good that you're mentioning it now. There's also the communications and community engagement and community
Engagement and communications
Thank you.
committee.
All their meeting dates are on the calendar and should be accurate. And I think the next one is October 12th.
And I'm the
Excellent
liaison
forum
for
to talk
that.
about that.
And I'm the liaison for that one, so.
And Dr. Iverson, liaison. I don't know if there's anyone else with something to say. I have one more thing. I know it's late. We've been here for forever. I just want to pass this along. Sorry, guys. It's I'm gonna pass it down. I'm requesting that we research ACT scores for the last 5 years as an indication of college readiness. This is something I found, don't ask me where, I found it last year at this time. As an example of what I'd like to see either the next meeting or in a board packet. I think it's useful information. So sorry, I can't share it, but come to the next meeting. There's coffee and water and cookies and handouts. I'm sorry.
That looks like your coffee maker.
But that's all. I don't know if there's
Oh,
a.
that's yours?
No.
Oh, okay, I thought that was what you had.
No.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Can you show Dr. Iverson?
yes, I'm sorry.
I haven't seen the thing.
I don't know. She got it from somewhere. Okay, well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And trustee Washington is the chair, and we'll work with Dr. Macaluso to get some information out. We have, if anyone signed on and wants to reconsider being on the committee or sign up, Erin Jacobson, Kelly Johnson, Michelle Jorge, Giovanna Skier are the community members that signed up to be officially on the committee and vote on recommendations to the committee, to the board. Kiana Washington. Yeah, she's gonna be the chair. And she's gonna work with Dr. Macaluso to, I guess, for upcoming meetings and planning and topics. Good?
Yep.
All right.
We adjourn the meeting.
I second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
night.
Good night. It's 8:54 p.m.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
thank you.